Hi and welcome back. I have been hiding some plants from you all. All the plants you see in this photo carousel, I now have in my possession. A very kind friend of mine did all the work in getting them here for me, but I now have them and I'm going to feature them in this video. Now, not only do I have these plants, but I also got some newbies locally that I'm going to share with you all at the end. So stick around for the pricing and the sourcing and everything in between. So most of the plants I got from the Ecuador US website. I don't want to butcher the name, so I'll just throw it up on the screen for you all. I paid 10 US for this one. Now, just a little background story. How I got to this point was because one of my really good friends who travels frequently actually just made me an offer I couldn't refuse. She volunteered to bring these plants safely home to me. Now, this is not the first time she's done it. She frequently does it, and I am just forever grateful for her remembering me. Like, who does that? This is such a stressful thing to undertake if you have never done it before. It really is highly stressful. And for her to even offer, if you're watching, thank you a million for sorting me out. This is just so heartwarming, and I am just forever grateful for your kindness and generosity. So how the process went was basically I just jumped on the Ecuador website, the US one, and sent her a list of the plants that I wanted to purchase. She did everything else from there, which included placing the order for the plants, getting all the documents in order, and everything in between. So this was the second one that was on this list, the medium Spider-Man. I only paid 15 US for it. Now, these are all the cost prices. I will break down the total price I would have paid with shipping and FITO and taxes and all of that at some point in this video. So just for you to understand the cost price, that's why I'm just posting the cost price for now, but I will explain what the final or landed cost was later on. Another disclaimer is that I know none of these plants are in my wish list video. This was basically an impulse buy. It was an opportunity I didn't want to refuse, just to get some new babies in my collection. This was another on the list, Spathiphyllum. Now, when I purchased or when I decided to get these plants, I never saw them before. I hadn't researched it. It was purely a see it, like it, buy it sort of situation and figure it out later. But when I saw this one as a Spathiphyllum, I figured, okay, it might be peace lily care that's required, and I know I've recently locked down that care, so I added it to my cart. Now, the dark foliage is really what caught me. I've never seen it locally. I've never seen it before in general, featured on any video or social media, but it was just too gorgeous and only 35 US. So I just popped that in my cart also and proceeded with the order. Next up is this Magnificum Silver. So if you watched my wishlist video, you will know that I'm a sucker for a dense vein network on anthuriums, more so if it's shimmery. So this is a no-brainer. When I stumbled upon it, I just immediately added it to cart. Now you will see all the plants live shortly, and you will understand more the risk involved when you're purchasing from a website in terms of not really knowing what the real plant is going to look like. So what I mean is, you're not sure of the size that you're going to receive, other than if you wanted a mature plant or seedling option, which you will get to select on the website. However, you're not really too sure on what is the actual size or what it's actually going to look like, because photos can be deceiving. So there is a lot of risk purchasing online, and just those are little points to note that it may not be what you see is what you get. Okay, so I clearly lied before. This one was in my wish list video. This is the Philodendron Esmeraldens Narrow. I was able to grab it for $33 on the Ecuador US website, and boy, oh boy, was it worth it. Now, you could decide for yourself when you see it in a few, but I was so excited to get this one. I'm really hoping it is true to form, and just a little spoiler alert, it shipped so well. It really, really was mind-blowing to see it real. Just because, you know, it has been on my wish list for a while, and if you see, like, or if you remember in my wish list video where I featured what the mature form looks like, it really is breathtaking. So I was really happy that this was still available on the website, so I did not hesitate to add it to cart. Lastly, I got this philodendron SP Columbia for $30 US. Now, I've seen it floating around like a couple of years now, but last year I really got the confidence, or the urge I should say, to add it to my collection, having successfully propagated and grew my philodendron gloriosum and my Plowmanii. Those are pretty mature philos in my collection now, and I felt like this would be an easy add. I'm hoping that the markings on the leaves are true to this photo, so we'll see, you know, as I grow them out, how things go once they survive. Now, this was a group order, so I want to jump into the pricing a little more to explain the landed cost. Now, certain things you need to understand, which is I don't know how many people ordered in the first place, so we would have shared all the costs associated outside of this sale price of the plant itself. Meaning to say, as a group order, we would have split the cost for the phytosanitary certificate, any shipping costs, and any administrative costs associated. So with that said, I just averaged that total cost, including the price of the plant for my 6 plants, and that would have ran me up $270 TT per plant. I just averaged it for simplicity and for the sake of this video, to get the point across that it is so much cheaper to do a group order if you can. And the person who facilitated all of this, who I'm forever grateful for, is Sophia from Yardi Decor. I'm sure she'll be willing to chat with you guys. Feel free to hit her up on Instagram. I will tag her profile in the description. So let's jump into some timelines. I placed my order on August 26th. And here I am on Monday, the 10th of September, collecting them. Now, I am actually a day late in terms of when it landed. So it really came in, I would say, in 9 days rather than 10 days. And I immediately jumped into rehab mode as they were all brought in wrapped in sphagnum moss. So at this time, I'm now sorting them and getting ready to prep them and treat any issues that they may have come in with. Give them a good check over, check for pests, check the root health, and just do any sort of general cleaning up. Here I am inspecting everything and just getting my clear bin ready to ensure that I could create a humidity chamber. Generally, I found all the plants came in great condition. I didn't see anything worth noting that would probably prevent me from being able to save the plant if it needed some sort of critical rehabbing. Everything looked pretty good. They were pretty sizable, as you can see here. This is the Philodendron esmeraldens. So I'm just going through each one here. This one, the Columbia, actually shipped the worst. I would say it's pretty floppy, pretty dehydrated. That leaf got ripped. So it seems like all of them are able to fit in this humidity chamber, which is really just a clear bin that I got from PriceSmart. Again, I think it was like $130 if I remember correctly. So immediately I'm going to check the roots and start rehydration. So I took all the moss off already and all the clear wrapping to reveal the roots and really get a close look at what the roots look like. They are pretty white and healthy on this one. And I'm just going to immediately place it in a dish of water, ensuring that not too much of the stem is submerged in water, primarily the roots. And make sure that it's secure, not going to topple over and stuff. Now, bear in mind, besides these import plants, later in the video, I revealed some local plants that I got. So you could see the difference with an import and with one that's already acclimated. This Spathiphyllum is pretty perky, pretty full. It has multiple plants on this one. As you can see, the roots look great. It's a pretty dense network. I think it's even choppable at this point if I wanted to propagate it. Those roots are great. It's going to go in the same dish, and again, the water level is just going to stop at the base of the stem. Just a little side note, this medium Spider-Man doesn't look significantly different to the medium silver that I already have, but it is a juvie plant, so we'll see when it grows up what it really turns into. These are the roots on this one. This is a pretty tiny plant, but it does not seem to be in any sort of trauma in any big way. It doesn't really have much roots, but I think it's sufficient for the size of the plant. I'm not too worried about that one either. The biggest, I would say, definitely was this philo, the Esmeraldans, and the root system is quite huge in keeping with the size of the plant in general. I had to get a taller container to ensure that this one is stabilized properly, and again you can see where the water level stops when I'm hydrating. This is the Magnificum Silver. So this is what I meant by sometimes the plant doesn't look exactly like what you see in the photo when you're purchasing online. However, this one shipped the best in my opinion. I find it did not seem dehydrated in any big way. The roots look great, nothing was mushy. This is the Columbia, which I think shipped the worst. This new leaf I think would have emerged during shipping or started emerging prior to when they packaged it to ship out, so it is super floppy. Now the leaf before it is perky and hydrated, but this root system I find looks pretty shabby. It looks like some has already deflated too. This is the moss unwrapping that I'm just going to toss. I'm not going to try and keep that moss because I don't know what pests may be living in it. Everyone is set up to be hydrated for 24 hours. I leave it in that bin. I did not cover it because these plants were pretty big. I just kept it inside. And here I am transporting them to another location. As most of y'all would know, I'm in between moves. So I'm heading back to my potting station, where I would now check the roots again, make sure everything's alright after soaking for 24 hours. Now this Mag Silver I found looked great, so I'm just going to pot it up now. This would be the next day having received it after a 24-hour soak. And what I do is I pot it in a smaller pot than I usually would. So that size is probably like a 5-inch pot. And I already had my anthurium mix ready to go. Here it is all tucked in. I didn't want to leave too much space to encourage any rot, so that's why I sort of put it in a smaller pot as well. And here I am watering with Great White. You're probably fed up to hear me talk about Great White, but I swear by it, it really does prevent the trauma. I find it works great in terms of the bacteria and the roots forming that symbiotic relationship to ensure nutrient uptake, so I feel like the plants don't suffer having been imported. So I would have watered it until the water ran through the bottom of the pot, and here I am just topping it with moss to ensure some additional humidity. And as the plant grows, any stem that becomes exposed on the surface will now start to root, because the moss encourages or stimulates root growth along that exposed stem. Here it is all done. It was a bit windy, but the plant itself is not as floppy as it appears. It is firm, it is sturdy. Lastly, I add a tag just so that I remember what it is. And then I find a cool, humid spot for it. So here I put it to the bottom of my monsteras, where it receives a significant amount of shade, but also a significant amount of bright light. Then I moved on to my Philodendron Esmeraldans. This had a pretty great root system as well, so this one is potting up also after 24 hours of soaking. The leaves are quite firm, they are perky as you can see, as compared to the Columbia, which is still floppy after 24 hours. So this one I think is ready to go. I'm going to just put it in my Utopia soil mix. And again, I'm also going to just put it in a pot that's smaller than I usually would, just to make sure there isn't too much water retention to promote rotting. It's snugly tucked into the pot there now, and here I am just going to water it with Great White as I did the Mag Silver. Please excuse my finger to the top there. I'm going to water until the water runs out the bottom. I find it has a little bit of a lean, and it is a much bigger plant too, so you'll see that I'm going to add a stake just for some additional support later on. Here it is. It's I believe like a 4-foot stake. I just planted it, making sure I didn't damage that top root there, and I would have secured it using this Velcro tie. I also topped it with moss just to create that additional humidity again, and here we are. Now I would have placed it in a spot that I know my phyllos love. So here it's getting a lot more light, as you could see, as compared to the Magnificum Silver, the Anthurium, but I know it would love it because this is where my phyllos thrive. I moved on to the Spathiphyllum next, which again was a perfect rosette. It was just absolutely beautiful and ready to be potted up. Again, I'm watering with Great White until the water drains out. I want to make sure I got even watering with this one, as the root system was compact and dense, so I made sure to go all the way around the pot. I then place it next to my Picasso Spathiphyllum, as it belongs to the same genus. This is Spathiphyllum as well, or Peace Lily. It also resides next to this Calathea. Now they all require the same care, and what I'm trying to do is place all the plants in that sweet spot from the onset. This other one I found was still floppy. The roots look good, but I think I'm going to skip that one and move straight over to the Amedrium Spider-Man. This one was pretty pokey. You'll see me sort of squish the leaves a little bit just to assess turgidity, and it was fine. Now I was lacking a pole here, and it is crucial to put your Amedriums on a pole immediately from the research that I have done. Otherwise it will send out runners and no leaves. Here it has already sent out a runner with some new growth, so I don't want it to continue to run. So I just added this makeshift pole, which is just a piece of wood, and made sure that I place that runner directly on it so it can attach as soon as possible. Here I'm just going to water it in again with some Great White. And then I'm going to find that sweet spot, of which is going to be right next to my Amedrium Medium Silver, which is still thriving even after the fall. I don't know if y'all remember when this pole broke in half and I was able to save it with just using moss. So it's doing well, and here's the comparison I was trying to make. I really have not noticed any significant difference between the two, but we shall see as it grows. I added that clay pot just for additional stability, as the piece of wood was a little heavy for the pot. Here is another look at the Columbia. It is still quite floppy after a 24-hour soak. This one as well. I'm not going to pot them up today. I'm going to leave them to continue to hydrate until I feel like they have perked up significantly. What I did here was I moved them back inside into a cooler space. I didn't want them to experience the outdoor heat, so I moved them inside into that west facing spot, so it's going to receive a lot of great light. I added back the lid to create a humidity chamber to ensure that they get the right amount of hydration and care needed at such a sensitive time where they have been uprooted and gone through shipping. So hopefully this will do the trick. Here I am checking in on them about 2 days after. So this would have been 4 days after import and 2 days after I potted up the Mag Silver and the Philodendron. So they took about 3 days to hydrate properly. You can see that the foliage is quite perky now. They are upright, and the Columbia leaf has expanded. It looks super. This worked wonders, putting them back in the bin and leaving them to hydrate for a longer period. Look how huge this leaf is. I'm so happy I left them a little while longer. They are now ready to pot up. You can see in the inset frame that it was floppy at that point, and how much more upright it is now, how much more firm the leaves are. Again, I'm going to pot it up into a snug space. Look how upright it is. This plant is so gorgeous. The variegation is so stunning, especially those purple backs. And well, of course, you know I'm watering it with great white. Again, I put this one in a clear pot because I really want to make sure I monitor the root growth and the root health. This is really like joy juice to me, this great white solution. I swear by it, it is the best thing to me for rehabbing plants or acclimating them. It just minimizes trauma perfectly for me. I decided to place that one in an east-facing spot where it will receive morning light, but still a significant amount of shade. That is usually what the majority of my plants like. Then I proceeded to check on the Columbia, and because it perked back up so much, I decided that I'll just pot it up. Even though those roots don't look the greatest, having deflated, I'll just trim those off, but the remaining is still white and was still firm. That's these roots here. Those still look good. Those are the ones I chopped off. You can see the body of it is missing. It's very thread-like, so I just got rid of it and decided I'll pot it up. As a crawler, I just laid it on the surface and to one side so it can continue to grow in one direction. I covered it, but it is still really close to the surface, and I needed to add a stake just to give it some additional support as it is in a smaller pot. And this stake I got from Twigs. I will link them in my description. That's an Amazon shop. The inset shows how floppy it was and how it has recovered. I'm just going to water it in as I did the rest. And then find that sweet spot, hopefully, which was in an area that I have, again, a lot of my phyllos. And that wraps up these import plants. I'm going to move into some plants that I got locally now, and we could do a little comparison based on the pros and cons of shopping locally as opposed to importing. So first up is this little cutie. It is an Anthurium Brielle, a dog block plant, cross with Anthurium Bessie Af. Diane, or the plant lover on Instagram, I'll link her profile below, was able to grow these from seed, and then we traded for it. So again, the perks of belonging to a local community or local plant community is that we can trade for plants. There's no cost, maybe just a delivery fee, but there's no cost attached in a trade. You build your collection and build your relationships, and we're able to trade plants and add new plants that way. This one was such a stunner. I can't wait to see it grow. I ended up placing it in a space where I could control the watering primarily. It's not my typical Anthurium spot. It's a little brighter. Then I got these two guys. I purchased these from SJ's Garden Haven. You all know that's a go-to spot for mine. The customer service is always on point. The plants are always on point. Again, the perks of shopping locally is that these plants are already acclimated. I could directly speak to the grower and get any tips or advice that I need. So I got the variegated money tree from her. The variegation is insanely gorge. And I also got the Syngonium, the variegated Syngonium chiapens. So again, the perks of purchasing locally is that these plants are already acclimated to the country, I would say at first, and now it just has minimal acclimating in my space to do, which I can monitor daily and again get in contact with them if I needed any further advice. So I ended up placing the money tree in that east facing spot and this Syngonium in a spot where I have a lot of my other Syngoniums. Now you see how that leaf is touching the wood in that storage unit. I decided to put it on a riser instead, which is just a clay pot I flipped just to make sure snails don't get at it. I realized when my leaves touch the trough, the snails tend to get at it. Last but not least was what's inside this package. I got my first plant delivery to my new home from the succulent source. It was perfectly packaged. I was very, very pleased with how stable it was in the box. There was no way that was budging during transport. I paid $50 for delivery. And as you could see, it's the blue oil fern, the wide form. I'm looking at this footage and my brain is on pause. Well, let's have a better look in the light after I've had my moment with it alone. Now I could proceed. It is truly blue and this bushy. I had no idea the plant would be this big. More so enchanting still. I had the narrow form in the past and I was struggling with it, and I gave it to a good friend Sarah. Hopefully it's happier by her now. Oh, I forgot to mention I paid 215 TT for this one. So just to wrap up, when you purchase locally, we don't have that stress of acclimating. That's the main perk for me purchasing locally. I don't have that stress to acclimate or rehab if necessary, as opposed to an import. And again, another great benefit is that I could get in touch with the grower, in this case Avi, who has already sent me a voice note in terms of care and location in which she had it growing in, just to give me a little head start. I haven't decided on a location for this one as yet. I really struggle with ferns, so I'll probably update you all on Instagram with respect to where I ended up putting it. So just to wrap up, the perks of importing is that I get to choose plants that are not available here and that are cheaper if it is available here. However, I do have to spend a lot of time rehabbing it and sort of babying it until it can thrive on its own. And while the perks of purchasing locally is that we have so much more information available to help us along by being in contact with the growers, and that the plants are already established, so we have that head start. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Do drop me a line in the comments, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.